Welcome to the YouTube channel Bookworm. Today, we will listen to a brief retelling of the next book, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer by Mark Twain. Chapter 1. Aunt Polly searches all over the house for her mischievous nephew, Tom Sawyer, and catches him when the boy tries to sneak past. From Tom's soiled hands and mouth, Aunt Polly determines that his nephew has been in the pantry and encroached on jam supplies. Punishment seems inevitable, but the boy points at something behind his aunt. She turns around, and Tom jumps out into the street. Aunt Polly cannot be angry with her nephew for long, because he is an orphan, the son of her dead sister. She is only afraid that she is not strict enough with the boy, and that an unworthy person will grow out of him. Reluctantly, Aunt Polly decides to punish Tom. It is a pity to force the boy to work when all the children have a holiday, but it is the hardest work for him, and I have to fulfill my duty, otherwise I will ruin the child. On this day, Tom skips school and has a great day swimming in the Mississippi, on the banks of which stands the boy's hometown, Petersburg, Missouri. In an attempt to prevent this, Aunt Polly sewed up the collar of Tom's shirt so that he could not take it off. Tom tried to outsmart his aunt by sewing up the collar again, but his half-brother Sid, disgustingly exemplary, notices the deception. Tom used threads of a different color. The boy is again threatened with punishment with rods, but he again manages to escape. Until late, he disappears on the street, manages to defeat an unfamiliar, smartly dressed boy in a fair fight. Tom returns home late. Aunt Polly, who is waiting for him, sees the miserable state of his nephew's clothes and finally decides to make him work all Saturday. Chapter 2 and 3. On Saturday morning, Aunt Polly makes Tom whitewash the fence, but the boy manages to turn this boring job into a very profitable undertaking. He pretends that whitewashing the fence is the most interesting thing in the world. Boys I know buy into this trick and start paying Tom for the rare pleasure of a little brush work. Tom soon becomes the richest boy in town. In addition to glass marbles and other necessary things, he receives a dead rat and a one-eyed kitten. He discovered the great law that governs human actions, namely, that in order for a boy or an adult to want something, only one thing is needed, that it is not easy to achieve. Amazed Aunt Polly lets Tom go free. The rest of the day the boy plays with his bosom friend Joe Harper. Returning home, Tom sees a girl of marvelous beauty in the garden of one of the houses and instantly falls in love with her. In the evening, Sid starts stealing lumps of sugar from the sugar bowl and breaks it, but Tom gets caught for it. He completely surrenders to his resentment and is not even happy with his sister Mary, who lives in the country and comes home only for the weekend. Chapter 4 and 5. Sunday is coming. Mary washes Tom, makes him wear a tight suit, shoes, and sends him to Sunday school. Arriving at school a little earlier, Tom exchanges tickets from the guys, which can be obtained for 2 memorized Bible verses. A student who has memorized 2,000 verses is solemnly presented with a Bible. Tom was not so possessed of spiritual thirst as to strive for this award, but there is no doubt that he longed with all his being for the glory and splendor that came with it. On this day, distinguished guests are present at the lesson: Lawyer Thatcher, accompanied by his brother, a real district judge, and family. In the daughter of a lawyer, Tom recognizes his new love. The boy shows the astonished teacher tickets that give the right to the Bible. The teacher senses a catch, but cannot refuse, and Tom finds himself at the pinnacle of fame. Chapter 6 and 7. On Monday, Tom doesn't feel like going to school, so much that he tries to pretend to be terminally ill. Aunt Polly quickly exposes her nephew, pulls out a loose tooth, and sends him to school. A hole in a row of teeth makes Tom the object of everyone's envy. Before class, Tom meets the young pariah of Huckleberry Finn, the son of a local drunkard. The city mothers hate Huck, and the boys envy him. He did not have to wash himself or put on everything clean, and he was also a master of swearing. In a word, this ragamuffin had everything that gives life value. Huck has a dead cat in his hands, with the help of which he is going to reduce the wart. To do this, according to local belief, one must come to the cemetery at midnight, find the fresh grave of the criminal, wait until the devils come for his soul, and throw the cat after them while saying magic words. Tom persuades Huck to take him with him. The teacher punishes Tom for being late and communicating with Huck. He sits him down with the girls, where the boy meets his love, Becky Thatcher. After school, they are alone in the classroom. Tom confesses his love to Becky, begging her for a kiss and a promise to marry him, but then accidentally blurts out about his previous bride. Becky is offended and rejects his most valuable gift, a copper knob from a tag-in. Chapter 8. Rejected and immersed in longing, Tom wants to die, not forever, but for a while, so that Becky will regret her act. Then he decides to go to the Indians, but then rejects this idea and chooses a brilliant career as a pirate. He intends to run away from home and goes to the forest, where he digs up his hiding place. Unfortunately, there is only one glass ball, and Tom was counting on a conspiracy that helps, along with the hidden ball, to find all the lost ones. Tom decides that the witches interfered with him. Meanwhile, Jo Harper enters the woods. She and Tom act out a scene from Robin Hood and part quite pleased with each other. Chapter 9 and 10. At night, Tom and Huck Finn go to the cemetery, not forgetting to grab a dead cat. They decide that devils will certainly come for the recently deceased old man and hide at his grave. Instead of devils, Dr. Robinson comes to the grave, accompanied by a local drunkard, Meth Potter, and a half-breed Indian Joe. By order of Dr. Joe and Potter, they dig up a coffin, remove a corpse from it, and tightly tie it to a wheelbarrow. Potter begins to demand additional payment from the doctor. The Indian has a blood feud on his mind. Once the doctor kicked him out of his house, a fight breaks out. The doctor stuns Potter with a board, and Joe gets close to Robinson and plunges a meth knife into his chest. The frightened boys run away. Meanwhile, the Indian inspires the awakened Potter that he killed the doctor. Tom and Huck sign a terrible oath. Now they will not tell anyone about what they saw, because if they open their mouths, Injun Joe will kill them. Chapter 11, 12, and 13. By noon, news of the terrible crime is spreading throughout the town. Muff Potter is arrested, and Injun Joe unexpectedly turns up as a witness. For a whole week, Tom cannot sleep peacefully because of fear and pangs of conscience. All this time, he visits Potter, locked in a brick booth in a swamp, and brings him food. Meanwhile, Becky stops going to school, and life loses all charm for Tom. Aunt Polly decides that her nephew is sick and tries to treat him with a variety of patented remedies, which she truly believes in. Having measured its capacity as if it were a jug and not a boy, every day she poured it to capacity with some kind of charlatan swill. Tom comes to his senses when his aunt starts giving him the latest painkiller that tastes like liquid fire. She discovers that her nephew is completely healthy when he treats her aunt's cat with fire medicine. Returning to school, Tom meets Bequia, but the girl turns her nose up and proudly turns away from him. This finally strengthens the boy in his decision to become a pirate. He makes a gang of Jo Harper and Huck Finn. At midnight, having taken provisions, friends on a raft are transported to Jackson Island, which is located 3 miles below Street Petersburg. Chapter 14, 15, 16, and 17. The newborn pirates spend the first day of freedom having fun, swimming, and exploring the island. After dinner, they see a steamboat sailing down the Mississippi. A cannon is firing on board. This is looking for a drowned man who should emerge from a loud sound above the water. Tom is the first to guess that they are looking for them. For a moment, they felt like heroes. That was a real triumph. They are looking for them, they mourn for them. Because of them they are killed. They shed tears. They bitterly repent that they found fault with the poor dead boys. Only at night does it occur to Tom and Jo that their family is not at all happy. Joe wants to come back, but Tom makes fun of him and quells the riot. After waiting until the friends are sound asleep, Tom leaves the island and makes his way to the town. The boy sneaks into Aunt Polly's room, where Sid, Mary, and Joe Harper's mother are sitting, and hides under the bed. Listening to the crying of unfortunate women, Tom begins to feel sorry for them and wants to show up, but then he has a new plan. At first, Tom does not tell his friends about his idea, but seeing that Joe is completely discouraged and homesick, he reveals his plan to the pirates. From a conversation in Aunt Polly's room, Tom learned that they were having a memorial service on Sunday. He invites his friends to come to the church right in the middle of the service, and they enthusiastically agree. On Sunday, friends put the plan into action. The resurrected mischievous people are so happy that they don't even try to punish them. Chapter 18, 19, and 20. Tom becomes a hero, decides that he can live just fine without Becky Thatcher, and turns his attention to his former love. By the time he starts to regret it, but time is lost. Becky is already entertained by Alfred Temple, the same dandy whom Tom once beat up. Unable to bear the pangs of jealousy, Tom runs away from the lessons. Becky no longer has anyone to tease, and Alfred bores her to death. The unfortunate man realizes that he turned out to be just a tool and takes revenge. He floods Tom's textbook with ink. Becky sees everything through the window, but decides to remain silent. Let Tom be punished for ruining the book. Tom's teacher constantly reads a certain book that all the students dream of looking into. They can't do this. The book is constantly locked in the teacher's desk drawer. The next day, Tom finds Becky near an open box with a mysterious book in her hands. Becky gets scared and accidentally tears the page in half. In class, Tom is punished for ruining his textbook with ink. Becky never told the truth. Then the teacher takes out the book, sees the torn page, and begins the inquiry. Tom realizes that Becky is in danger of being punished and takes the blame. Tom stood for a moment, collecting his courage, and when he stepped forward to accept the punishment, the admiration and gratitude that shone in Becky's eyes rewarded him 100-fold. Falling asleep in the evening, the boy remembers Becky's words, "Oh Tom, how noble you are." Chapter 21, 22, 23, and 24. The long-awaited holidays are coming. They start out boring. Nothing is happening in town. Becky is away on vacation, and Tom is bored. The mystery of the murder weighs on the boy and torments him. Tom soon comes down with measles and spends 2 weeks in bed. After recovering, Tom discovers that a religious renewal has begun in the city. Not finding a single sinner among his friends, Tom decides that he alone in the whole city is doomed to eternal death, and he begins to relapse, which puts the boy to bed for another 3 weeks. By his recovery, the religious renewal in the city ends, and the time of the trial of Math Potter is coming. Tom cannot stand the pangs of conscience and tells the truth to Potter's defender. The boy is a witness in court. During his story, Injun Joe jumps out the window and hides. Meth is acquitted, and Tom becomes a hero again. Tom spends his days in joy and fun, but at night he languishes with fear. Injun Joe fills all his dreams and always looks at him darkly and menacingly. Both Tom and Huck are afraid of Joe's revenge and understand that they will breathe easy only when they see the corpse of a half-breed. Chapter 25, 26, 27, and 28. Tom is attacked by a passionate desire to find the treasure. According to legend, the treasure can be found in a rotten chest under a dried tree, where the shadow from a knot falls at midnight, or under the floor in old houses, where it is unclean. Tom captivates Huck Finn with his idea. Breaking the whole ground under a withered tree, the friends switch to a local haunted house. They entered quietly, with a rapidly beating heart, talking in whispers, catching the slightest sound with their alert ears, and tensing every muscle in case they suddenly needed to retreat. Having settled in, the boys leave the shovels in the corner and climb the rotten stairs to the second floor. Suddenly, voices are heard. Through a crack in the floor, Tom and Huck see a disguised Injun Joe enter the house with his accomplice. They are going to hide the stolen money in an abandoned house and accidentally dig up a treasure chest of gold. The accomplice offers Joe to take all the money and leave the state, but the half-breed plans revenge and decides to stay. Joe is alarmed by shovels stained with fresh earth, and he takes all the gold with him to hide it in number 2, under the cross. Finally, the half-breed wants to check the second floor, but the stairs collapse under his weight, which saves the boys' lives. Tom believes that Joe is going to take revenge on him. Despite this, she and Huck begin to follow the half-breed to find out where he hides the gold. Tom decides that number 2 is a room in a tavern, and Huck is on duty every night. Friends plan to steal the chest when Joe is away somewhere. Chapter 29, 30, 31, 32, and 33. Becky is back in town. The Thatchers are having a country picnic for all the children of Street Petersburg. After having fun and having a delicious lunch, the children decide to explore MacDougall's cave, an endless maze of winding, crisscrossing corridors. A noisy company until late inspects the explored part of the cave. The children then board the steamboat and return to the city. Tom and Becky have taken time off to spend the night with friends, so their disappearance is discovered only in the morning. It soon becomes clear that the children are lost in the cave. Meanwhile, Huck follows the mestizo and discovers that Joe is going to take revenge on the widow Douglas, the richest and most generous woman in town, who once ordered the Indian to be whipped. Huck decides to save the widow and calls for help from a nearby farmer with 2 burly sons. The widow is rescued, but Injun Joe slips away again. Gold is not found in the lair of the mestizo either. Fear sets Huck into a fever. He is cared for by the widow Douglas. All the next day, the men of the city ransack the cave. Thus passed 3 days and 3 nights full of fear. Dreary hours dragged on for hours, and at last the whole town fell into hopeless despair. Tom and Becky, meanwhile, wander around the cave for a long time. At first, Tom is invigorated, but then both he and Becky realize that they are completely lost. Tom tries to console and support his girlfriend, but she is getting weaker and weaker from hunger. The children run out of candles. They are left in complete darkness on the shore of an underground source. Tom begins to explore the nearest corridors, and in one of them stumbles upon Injun Joe, who takes off running. In the adjacent corridor, Tom finds a way out of the cave, a small hole on a cliff near the river. Children are solemnly brought home. 2 weeks later, Tom learns that Judge Thatcher ordered to block the entrance to the cave with a door sheathed with sheet iron. Only now Tom remembers that Injun Joe was left in the cave. Metis is found dead near the door, which he tried to cut through with a knife. In the same place, near the entrance to the cave, he is buried. Tom guesses that number 3 under the cross is not in the hotel, but in a cave. In the passage where the boy saw the mestizo, the friends find a cross painted with soot on a stone. Under the stone, a narrow hole is found leading to a small chamber, and in it is a chest with money. Friends pour gold into bags and take it out of the cave. On the way, a farmer intercepts them and informs them that friends are invited to a party at the Widow Douglas. Chapter 34 and 35. The Widow Douglas already knows that Huck saved her and throws a party in his honor. The widow uttered so many kind words to Huck and praised and thanked him so much that he forgot to think about the unbearable torment from the new suit. The widow wants to take Huck in to raise money and help him start his own business. Here Tom declares that Huck is already rich and brings bags of gold. There are more than $12,000 in the bags. They are divided equally and put in a bank in the name of Tom and Huck, who become the richest boys in the city. Huck settles with the Widow Douglas and suffers terrible torment. He has to walk in boots, sleep on clean sheets, and use cutlery. Everywhere you turn, the bars and shackles of civilization deprived him of his freedom and fettered him hand and foot. Unable to bear such a hellish life, Huck escapes. Tom finds him in his favorite home, an old barrel, and persuades him to return to the widow, promising to accept a friend in Tom Sawyer's band of robbers.